Good morning, boys and girls. Today we are going to start a new story called Stone Soup. We're finished with the digestive system, and now we're going to focus on a new focus question. How can food nourish a community? A community is a place where people live or work together. A community that we live in is Lakeland. We live and work in the Lakeland school area. Here's a picture of our Lakeland Community and STEAM Center. This is a place where everyone in our community can come together to do work, fun activities, play sports, or do arts and crafts projects. Everyone of all ages can meet here at our Lakeland Community and STEAM Center. In our community, we have a great market called the LA Mart. At LA Mart, you can get fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as other things like fruits and cereal or cans of beans or meat. You can get lots of things at this market, and there's lots of food there that helps nourish our community. Another way or place that we can nourish our community is at restaurants. In our community, we have Popeyes, Taco Bell, Subway, Dunkin' Donuts, and other great places like Pizza Pleasers that helps nourish our community. Another example of a way you can nourish a community is by a farmer's market down here in this picture. A farmer's market is a place where farmers or gardeners can bring their crops to sell. They normally only sell fresh grown things or freshly baked or made things at a farmer's market. We haven't had any at Lakeland, but that would be a really great way to nourish our community if we get the chance to sometime. Let's begin. Our book that we're going to begin reading is called Stone Soup. You may have read this story before. There are 3 important words about the characters and setting that I want you to know. You're going to be hearing about the word soldier. In this story, there are 3 soldiers that are 3 of the main characters. These 3 soldiers are people or men who were in war for this made-up country, and it takes place a long, long time ago. The soldiers walk up to a village, which is a community where people live. It's not as big as a city. It's kind of like a small town community, and it's called a village. The people who live there are called villagers or peasants, and those are the people who just live there, have houses there, work there, and they belong to that community. Here's a picture of some of those characters in the story. Today, when we're reading the story, we are going to be beginning our SCAPE chart. We're not going to read the whole story today, but we are going to read enough to begin the setting, characters, and actions of our SCAPE chart. Remember, the P and the E stand for problem and ending. That will come from the end of the story. The book is called Stone Soup by Marcia Brown. Remember, the S stands for setting, where and when the story takes place. C stands for characters, the people who are in the story. And A stands for action. We're going to be looking for lots of actions that these characters do, because usually those actions tell us about the character. Now I'm going to open up our storybook and read it to you today. Here we go. Here's the title page of our book called Stone Soup by Marcia Brown. Stone Soup, an old tale. The words "an old tale" tell us that this is a story that's been passed down from different groups of people and told by different authors. Okay, here's our first characters, the 3 soldiers. Let's begin reading. 3 soldiers trudged down a road in a strange country. They were on their way home from the wars. Besides being tired, they were hungry. In fact, they had eaten nothing for 2 days. "How I would like a good dinner tonight," said the first. "And a bed to sleep in," said the second. "But all of that is impossible," said the third. "We must march on." On they marched. Suddenly, ahead of them, they saw the lights of a village. "Maybe we'll find a bite to eat there." said the first. "And a loft to sleep in," said the second. "No harm in asking," said the third. Now the peasants of the first feared strangers. The peasants of that place feared strangers. When they heard the three soldiers were coming down the road, they talked amongst themselves. As you can see, here's our soldiers here, and they're walking down a path towards this village in the distance. "Here come three soldiers. Soldiers are always hungry, but we have little enough for ourselves," and they hurry to hide their food. They pushed sacks of barley under the hay in their lofts. They lowered buckets of milk down the wells. They spread old quilts over the carrot bins. They hid their cabbages and potatoes under their beds. They hung their meat in cellars. They hid all they had to eat. Then they waited. The soldiers stopped first at the house of Paul and Francois. "Good evening to you," they said. "Could you spare a bit of food for 3 hungry soldiers?" "We have had no food ourselves for 3 days," said Paul. Francois made a sad face. "It has been a poor harvest." Uh-oh. Weren't these the people who were just hiding their food? Here's some more details about the setting, our village here. The 3 soldiers went on to the house of Albert and Louise. "Could you spare a bit of food, and have you got a corner where we could sleep for the night?" "Oh no," said Albert. "We gave all of our We gave all we could spare to the soldiers who came before you." "Our beds are full," said Louise. At Vincent and Marie's, the answer was the same. It had been a poor harvest, and all the grain must be kept for seed. So it went all through the village. Not a peasant had any food to give away. They all had good reasons. One family had used their grain for feed, another an old sick father to care for. All had too many mouths to fill. The villagers stood in the street and sighed. They looked as hungry as they could. The soldiers talked together. We're going to stop here for today. And let's go back to our SCAPE chart. Let's think through. Let's think of some examples of the place or when this story was taking place. When and where the story was taking place. Let me go back to my text for some text details. To this great picture of their, what's that word again we just learned? Village. That's right, you got it. So it takes place in a village, and it seems to be daytime. And it's after a war had ended. Those are really good details about the time that's taking place in our story. Now, we've met lots of characters, so I'm going to use 2 of those new words that we learned. There were 3 soldiers, and there were villagers. Oops. And lastly, we saw some actions of the characters. The soldiers were going from house to house asking for something. What were they asking for? You're right, they asked for food and beds because they were tired. But the villagers, what were their actions? They hid their food and did not share. Those are the actions of the characters we've had so far. In your journal or in your notebook, you can use my SCAPE chart to help you draw your own SCAPE chart. If you need to, you can pause this video now so you can record the S, C, and A of your SCAPE chart. Don't forget to include P and E at the bottom for our work tomorrow. Here's our writing, just to help you a little bit more. We use details from our text to help us fill in the settings, characters, and actions of our new text. If you need to come back and pause this video, you can, but make sure you record this in your notebook so we can finish this work tomorrow. Thanks for being such a great reader today, friends.